fellow bookworms to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I have my May wrap up, and I'm also going to be talking about the final 5 books I read because I wasn't able to do like a video on those books separately, so I thought I would just throw them in here and talk a little bit more in depth about those final 5. The other ones I'm just gonna skim through and just kind of go through what I read for May. I normally combine my May or my wrap ups with my TBR videos. I'm not doing that this month because I read so many books in May. There's so many of them, and so this video is going to take a little while. And plus, I have the 5 books that I need to talk about. So I'm just doing 2 separate videos. So you can see my June TBR coming out tomorrow. Definitely keep an eye out for that. Before we jump in though, if you guys could go ahead and remember to give this video a like, it really helps out the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on a thing. But yeah, I'm really excited. I read so much in May. I still don't know how I managed to get this all done. I was quite strategic about it, which probably helped. Like I combined some of my smaller reads with some of my thicker reads, and like the more dense books, I made sure I kind of spaced those out so I was reading them while I read other books, which really helped, instead of just trying to focus all on that book, which when I do that, especially like one of these is very dense, I kind of get burnt out. And so when I'm not reading that book, I don't want to read at all. So by kind of splitting it up, just reading like a chapter or a couple chapters and then focusing on some of the easier reads, it worked out really well. So if you saw May's TBR video, I talked about 35 books. 6 of those I knew I wasn't going to get to all of them, because one was a series I wanted to continue. There was 2 books that was the continuation of the Otherland series, which I read in April. And the other one was a series that I was going to be starting, and I had the first 4 books as it was part of my 25 Days of Bookmas books, and I had gotten the 4th book for that one. My husband had the first 2. I ordered the 3rd one. So I was potentially wanting to start that series and read as much of the series as I could in May, and of course just roll over the rest of them. And I'll talk more about those 2 books when I get to them. But not counting those, I ended up reading 30 books this month, which is crazy. Now, one of them I'm only halfway through. I am going to have to roll over because I only got through the first half of the book, so I'm going to be rolling over that one. But it's chunky and it's dense. The writing's very small and it just takes a while to get through. And so even reading the first half of the book, I'm thrilled with. And like I said, I'm just going to roll that one over. So I'm still counting it as a success. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We're going to start with this first one, which was one I wanted to read in April. I didn't get to it, so it just rolled over. And that is Sealed with a Kiss by Phillips. This one is the second one of kind of a duology with Cross My Heart. They're more companion novels than like an actual series duology, but I really wanted to read this one because I read the first one back in February and really enjoyed it. And yeah, this one didn't enjoy quite as much as the first one, but I did a video on this, so if you're interested, you could definitely go check that out. But yeah, that was the first book I read. And then next 2 I'm going to talk about is I continued the Dresden Files series, part of my series Saturday. I'm working my way through that. And I read book 9, which is White Knight by Jim Butcher, and then book 10, which is Small Favor, which this one I just finished recently. And yeah, I was really excited to be able to get to 2 of these. I'm really hoping to complete this series this year, and so there's a couple months where I need to read 2 of them. And so I was really happy that I was able to do so. And yeah, really enjoyed both of these, especially because I was getting a little burnt out on the series and had a lot of fun. Again, there's videos on these specific books if you're interested, but really excited to continue on with that series. And then the next one I read, which was kind of a bonus read, but I ended up enjoying it so much, so I just kind of ended up just reading it. because my plan was to read this one like a couple chapters each night at bed and really focus on my other reads. And that's the Once and Future Riches by Alix E. Harrow. Absolutely loved this book, which I had a feeling I would, which is why I picked it up. And yeah, I did. I'm really hoping I can get the 10,000 Doors of January by this author. I just did a huge haul, so I'm probably not going to be able to get it anytime soon, but I definitely want to continue to read this author because I absolutely love this book. Again, there's a specific video for this if you're interested in knowing more. And then the series that I wanted to continue, but again, it wasn't like a big priority, um, is the Otherland series by Tad Williams. I read the first two books in the series. This one is Mountain of Black Glass, and then the fourth one is Sea of Silver Light. Um, and this book, I still want to continue this series and I want to do it soon, but because I had other books that I was reading that were also dense and long, this one I wasn't able to get to it. I read like the foreword, um and that was it. So I'm really hoping in June I can, finish the other dense book I'm reading and I'll have some lighter reads so I can continue on to the series because I really enjoyed the first two books and I want to do it while those are still fresh in my mind. So I'm a little disappointed that I just couldn't work this one in, but again, it wasn't a priority this month. And the other series that I was starting, and I was going to try to read as much as I could, Green Rider by Kristen Britton. And I enjoyed this first book so much. Again, it was another one I just wanted to read like a couple chapters as I focused on some other ones. I sat down and just read this one. I loved it so much, and I decided, you know what, I want to hold off on the series until I get some of these other reads that are priorities done, and then I can just sit down and enjoy the series as a whole. I still need to get, like I said, the other four books, but I do have the first four, and so I'm going to be holding off on this one. So I'm not going to continue the other three that I had talked about when I was putting together my May TBR, but love this one so much. So that is Green Rider by Kristen Britton. The next one I read is Chasing Sunsets by Karen Kingsbury. This is book 2 in the Angels Walking series, and this was actually part of my ABC Author Challenge. My grandma actually encouraged me to get this one, and I'm not big on Christian fiction, especially depending on how it's done. And this one, was very much what I don't like about organized religion, but I ended up enjoying it so much. Like, I like the premise of this. Again, there's a video where I talk about this more in depth. So, really did actually enjoy this one. And then the next one, which is also part of my ABC Author Challenge, was The Cold Dish by Craig Johnson. This is book 1, and this is the television series Longmire, is based on this book series. So this one, pretty solid read. Didn't love it, but didn't hate it either. And I really enjoyed the characters overall. They were very quirky and fun, and I love that part of these books, or this book in specific. The next two I did DNF, but I gave them a chance, sort of. And so just because I DNF'd them, I'm not counting that against me, especially because I struggle with DNFing books, and so I was actually proud of myself that I DNF'd them. The first one, Terry Pratchett, Feet of Clay. I was looking forward to this one so much, and didn't get very far in, which, like I said, I struggled to DNF, and I at least want to give the book a chance if I do. But I barely made it 15 pages, and I was just like, I cannot do this. So I did DNF it. I'm gonna hold on to it and see if my husband might like Terry Pratchett. He's never read Terry Pratchett either, and so I'll see if he likes this book, Feet of Clay. But the writing style, he just jumped around, didn't lay a good enough foundation to kind of hook me, and I just did not enjoy it at all. And then the other one I DNF'd, which my husband is actually reading, is The Way of Shadows by Brent Weeks. Both this one and Feet of Clay were part of my 25 Days of Bookmas books. But yeah, this one I forced myself to read through chapter 5, and so I made it chapter 6. Even though knew I didn't want to continue reading it at chapter 3, I tried. And I didn't again like the writing style of this, but my husband's reading it. He's almost 200 pages in, so so far he's enjoying it as well. So, but it just wasn't for me at all. So DNF that one. And then the one I'm still working on, I haven't finished yet, is The Origin by Irving Stone. This one is about Charles Darwin and his early years when he was sailing around the world. It is so dense. The writing is so tiny. I don't know. And it's dense. So I'm almost 350 pages in, and it's 750 pages. So I am working my way through this one. Like I said, I'm not rushing it because I try to do that with the Tenets of Time, and it really burnt me out. So I'm just taking my time with this one, and I am really, really enjoying it. But I'm going to be rolling this one over into June, and like I said, just continuing to read like a chapter or so a day as I read other books that are a little lighter and easier to read. So still working on that one. And then I read the 15 books I have of the Heartland series. So I read all 15 of these. And like I said, this is where my strategy really came into play because I tried to read 1 to 2 a day. I wanted to finish them fairly quickly, so I aimed for 2 a day, and then read other books while I was reading these. And still love the series, 21 years later, from when I first started reading it. So, really, still a very enjoyable series. And I'm actually watching the 14th season of the show, which I have to say, I actually prefer the show a little bit more, but still really love the book series as well. So now we have the final 5 books, so I'm going to be talking about them a little bit more in depth. But overall, enjoyed pretty much all of these. So we'll go ahead and start with Tony Hillerman, The Sinister Pig. So I had read Anne Hillerman, Rock with Wings, which she has kind of continued her father's series of Leap Horn and Chi. And so this is one of his books that follow the series. And it was kind of fun going back because in this one you have Chi and his wife. They're not actually fully together yet in this one. And so that was really fun. And I really liked this one because it was closer to my neck of the woods. So I was very familiar with the landscape. Um, Anne Hillerman Rock with Wings took place in northern New Mexico, which my mom does live up there, so I am familiar somewhat with the landscape and such up there. But this one, like I said, was really close to home and worked out really, really nicely. So in this one, we have Chi. Leaphorn is just newly retired, and so he does help out. But we have the oil fields, and there's a death on the oil fields, and so they're trying to investigate this death, but it's kind of fishy because the FBI swoops in and they're not giving them any information. It's not even the local FBI office. It gets sent back to Washington. And so there's just kind of a lot of suspicion. And then you have Bernadette Manuelito, who is Chi's, sweetheart, and she actually ends up leaving the tribal police, and she's working down for border patrol, and that kind of connects back to the oil field killing that she is investigating. And so there's this kind of connection. I will say that the oil field stuff was a little bit over my head, but once it kind of got really into it, I caught on enough that I could really enjoy the story. But at first, it was a little rough because it was just, like I said, over my head. Um, But yeah, it was really fun, figuring out who the Sinister Pig was and kind of what was going on. And I have to say, I do enjoy his writing a little bit more than I did Anne Hillerman. But again, this is his series, and she's kind of just taking over on that. So obviously, he's going to be more familiar with the characters and everything else. But overall, really, really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving this one um 4 stars. So I'm not gonna go through my call pile rating on these because that would take too long. But yeah, this one got 4 stars. So overall, really, really did enjoy this one. And I do have one more Tony Hillerman book, and I do see myself, continuing to kind of collect his works as I come across them. Because I really do like reading about an area that I'm familiar with because I live in this area. So really, really excited to continue reading his stuff. The next one I read was The Color of Death by Elizabeth Lowell. And this is another one from my ABC author challenge. And, wasn't expecting to enjoy this one all that much. Actually, overall, did. And so this one, you have Kate, and she is a gem cutter. And she was commissioned to cut these gems, and then her brother is like a courier, and so he has to take these gems, but he ends up getting murdered and the gems disappear. And so she's trying to, bring attention to this, but the FBI don't believe her. They think her brother just ran off with the gems, and the guy who commissioned her is really secretive about the gems, and so there was nothing like fully on record either. So there's kind of this myth around these gems. And I have to say, like, I obviously know nothing about that world or anything like that, but this was so enjoyable. And it's kind of like a romantic suspense, so you have that romance aspect as well. And I don't know, I just really, really enjoyed this one. Um, trying to figure out who it was, who did it, and everything. Which I will say, some of the logic wasn't quite there, some of the explanations weren't fully developed, but overall, like, I really enjoyed just the writing style, and the pacing and everything like that. And so I ended up giving this book, let's see, an 8 even. So this is also a 4-star read. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this. Enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and I enjoyed the characters and everything like that. And I liked how she worked with Sam, who was kind of the romantic interest. Um, Even though they had, some tension there, and then there was kind of like a forbidden love because they weren't supposed to be dating each other or anything like that. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this one for sure. And then the next one I read, which I didn't enjoy so much, and again, you kind of had that forbidden love aspect, which this one was a little bit. It was a definite slow burn, but the tension there was a little bit more than in The Color of Death, and that is Codename Bikini by Christina Skye. This one, again, the kind of logic. I think with this one, what I didn't like was there was just way too much going on. You had kind of like the sci-fi aspect, then you had like this fantasy aspect, like kind of a supernatural fantasy aspect, and the characters themselves had so much going on with their lives that it was just a little bit unbelievable. You have, what's her name, Gina, and she's an ex-cop, but now she's a baker and she's working on a cruise ship, and like her and the romantic interest, who is a Navy SEAL, meet before like the cruise ship and everything like that, like just randomly meet, and then they have this like thing in the hotel, which confused me a little bit because he was across the street going to the hotel, and she was, at this other hotel, and then all of a sudden they're in the same hotel, and I'm like, I thought his hotel was across the street. So just some logic issues, and there was just way too much going on. I think if she had simplified it down, it would have been a lot more enjoyable, and like just the connections between the people, it was just like everybody's connected somehow. It's like really. So it just wasn't as believable, I guess. And there was just way too much going on. It should have been simplified down. Like I said, you have this ex cop, and now she's a baker, and she's has something with her health that's going on. Like it was a lot. But other than that, I did enjoy kind of the romantic aspect. Didn't really enjoy like the plot line though. The only thing that was enjoyable was the romantic aspect and that tension because it was forbidden and he kind of had this like code of conduct that he wasn't going to cross that line and such. But he does anyway. It's just I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot. Not one I'm going to be keeping, but I did at least enjoy reading it. This was one that has been on my shelf for years, and I'm trying to work my way through those books. So this one I ended up giving 3 stars, kind of on the low end of 3 stars, but it did get 3 stars. And then the next one, which is another one that's been on my shelf forever, this one I really, really enjoyed. It's called The Revenant, and this one's by Carolyn Haines. And this one I ended up giving 4 stars as well. And this one, the characters really did it for me in this one. Um, there's a lot of trauma with these characters, and so you have alcoholism, which is something could be a trigger warning, and you also have abuse, and so that's something else to be a trigger warning along with the death, of course. And so this one you have Carson, and she's a journalist, and something happens in her life, and so she really struggles with alcoholism and just struggling to want to live. And so the story that she's kind of investigating this ends up kind of saving her. It gives her something to live for. And then you have um several love interests for her, which was a little bit fun. And so you have the DA, her and him have a little bit of a thing going on. They go on a couple dates, but it's kind of very platonic between them. And so you're like, are they or aren't they? Like, what's going on? But they do go on a couple dates. And then you have her childhood sweetheart from high school kind of re-enters her life as well, and so they have a little thing going on. And then you also have her ex-husband, which I don't know, it was just so much fun. I normally don't like multiple love interests and such. Like I want to know like what's going on, but this was just done so well. Like it was very realistic, kind of these romances and those feelings and everything like that. And so yeah, they're investigating these deaths. There's like this old casino, and they're digging up the parking lot, and they find 5 bodies. And then when they find the bodies, the killings start happening again. And so she's kind of reporting. And I really liked her as a reporter because sometimes, journalists and such are viewed very negatively and then kind of act in a negative manner. Like all that matters is the story, and it doesn't matter, the case, and trying to keep things secret to make sure that it doesn't compromise the case. Where she wasn't like that. She was very, okay, like what can I release, what can't I release, and kind of had a conscience about it, which I really like. So it was, like I said, really the characters that made this book for me. And there was this horse aspect, and it was funny because I just watched a video that Caitlin Doty did, and I'll leave that video down below. Which, if you don't know, she's a mortician, and so she does videos like on funerals and such. And I had just watched her video, which was talking about Biloxi, Mississippi, and that's where this one takes place. And so I was like, what are the odds? But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this one. Definitely going to be keeping this one. I'm definitely going to be seeing if I could get my hands on more from this author, because it was really the writing and the characters that did it for me. And so I think I would enjoy other books by this author. So that's The Revenant. And then the last one that I just finished last night is Love, Life, and Elephants by Dame Daphne Sheldrick. So this is a memoir, and overall, really, really love this book. Really hit the spot. Um, I love conservation. Elephants are one of my favorite animals. Not my favorite, but one of them. I've always really been intrigued by elephants. Just how smart they are and everything like that. And their memory system and whatnot. And yeah, I absolutely love this. And did get a little bit long-winded at times. And the characters, she talks about a lot of people in her life. And she started back like when her ancestors, you know, like traveled from South Africa up to Kenya. And so it's like she started way back at the beginning. And so it did get a little long-winded at times, and it was kind of like, where is this going? But I mean, it's all about her work with these wild animals, specifically elephants, but also so many others. It is a bit depressing because a lot of the animals don't have a happy ending, and it really looks at the ivory trade and poaching issue and everything like that. So it was a little bit depressing at times because so many of these animals suffered, and learning more about the elephant social system and such, like, absolutely heartbreaking. And so I will say, if you're planning on reading this or if you're interested in it, and you're, especially if you're an animal lover, even if you're not, like, some of the scenes of what happened to these animals are horrific. Like, absolutely horrific. And you didn't even just have the poaching, you had like the local tribes who would get mad at the elephants for destroying crops and such and like attack them. There's one scene that was just horrible, but it was kind of fun because I really don't think of pioneering outside of the US, which is of course where I live. And so it was fun to see that pioneering aspect on the African continent, and how her ancestors traveled from South Africa to Kenya, and then just all the struggles with trying to become independent from Britain and everything like that. Like, there was a lot that happened in this book. And so it wasn't just her story, it was also that pioneering aspect, it was also that political aspect, and that kind of economic aspect, and how the ivory trade. And even she talks about in the end that wasn't just ivory, it was the meat too, because like Western Africa, I guess, had killed off all their animals, and so the meat from Kenya and such was being transported over there. And so yeah, there's a lot that went into this book, and it was very, very enjoyable, and I love seeing more the social aspect of the elephants and such, and the other orphan animals too, and how they acted, and kind of the aspect of taking them from these orphan animals being raised by humans and transferring them back to the wild, and also just the learning curve that conservation had to take. In the beginning they couldn't keep the baby elephants that were milk dependent alive because they couldn't find a suitable milk supplement, and so that took some trial and error before they could find a suitable milk supplement. And so yeah, I mean, absolutely love this, and it talks about her story as far as personal life as well. With her first husband and then marrying David Sheldrick. And I mean, if you like conservation and such, definitely, definitely worth the read. I did mark a couple pages. One of them she was talking about when she was in school, in childhood, and I just wanted to share it because it just shows. Like, I was like, I get it was a different time and different continent and everything, but I just couldn't believe that this would be okay. And so like if they got in trouble or something. So she says, on one occasion we had to open our desk, put our heads inside, and wait for him to slam down the lid. I ended up with a chipped front tooth, but consoled myself that was better than his usual treatment of girls, which was to fumble our breast and mutter, coming along nicely. And so he's like the head dude at the school or whatever, and I just like, I can't believe like that he could get away with that even back then. um I was just like, What? Um, and so yeah, like little things like that. That's just a different time and a different area. So, but yeah, really really enjoyable. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well, I believe. Yeah. So yeah, really really did enjoy this, even though it's a little bit long winded and it was so heartbreaking as far as the animals go. But that is it for the books I read in May. Let me know how many books you read in May. Was it a good reading month for you or was it a rough one? And I'll go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.